Hey, we have a real mix of genres today, so hopefully everyone will be able to find something interesting to watch. Let's not waste any more time though and jump straight in. While there's no doubt about Panzer Dragoon being an on-rail shooter, oh what a glorious on-rail shooter it is. It originated on Sega Saturn and it was platform seller there. This 1997's PC port is no different. Hardly a platform seller, as PC didn't require any incentive for sales, but definitely an arcade hit. If you like on-rail shooters, that is. It is set in a distant dystopian future where you play as Kyle Fluke and are a dragon rider armed with a powerful weapon and on a mission to get to and destroy the evil and oppressive dark dragon that's trying to gain access to a mythical weapon hidden in an ancient tower. Wow, what a sentence. The story may not be the most sophisticated one out there, but the gameplay is definitely a highlight here, and grabs you as soon as you start playing and doesn't let go until either your arms or eyes give in, or until you complete the game, whatever happens first. A little disappointingly, there's only one weapon that you have access to throughout the whole game, but it's rather strong and offers two shooting modes. A standard one that just pew-pews at all incoming enemies, and charge shot that's executed by holding down the shot and it highlights up to 8 targets before releasing homing lasers at them. You have a certain amount of energy that represents your health, and generally speaking it's best practice not to let anything hit you, as while it only eats away at a part of your health bar, there is no way of refilling it along the way. So yeah, no pickups, no refills, no bonuses, just you, your dragon and an ocean worth of enemies. And you know what? Even if it would be nice to have a bit more variety in weaponry and buffs, gameplay and enemies that you face more than make up for it. There are tons of them. Looking, behaving and attacking differently and going through Panzer Dragoon start to finish is a pure pleasure of rapid-fire destruction. Graphics are pretty nice, not groundbreaking in any way, but won't feel out of place even today. Same can be said about the sound design and music, the last being a bit calmer than I'd expect from an adrenaline-pumping shooter, but whatever. Panzer Dragoon is a blast, and that's what counts. Do you remember when Will Smith still wasn't cancelled and was actually both a respected actor and much less so musician? Good times, right? And remember when he used to play in hit movies like Men in Black 1 through 75, cause there's at least that many, or Independence Day for instance? Yeah, so one of those movies had a game. Correction, most of these movies had a game. But today we're gonna cover Independence Day only. And when I saw a preview of it in my fave game Mac at the time, I was hyped. I mean, I would soon get to fight aliens as one of my favorite action stars of the time. It had to be fantastic, right? Judge me or not, I don't care, I used to like Will Smith's movies, back when they were still fun. So yeah, as I was saying, I awaited the release of Independence Day the game impatiently. And when it finally did, oh boy oh boy oh boy, how it proved that most movie tie-ins suck. It was so generic, repeatable and, well, there's no way going around it boring that you wouldn't believe. Generally speaking, you're going to various cities all around the world and liberate them from attacking aliens. It's mainly centered around blasting their shield generators, occasionally destroying different structures and maybe shooting down some alien fighters. Maybe. And eventually taking down the mothership itself. All in a single fighter, same as in a movie, but many times over. I know it doesn't sound that bad, and honestly it's not. Once, twice, maybe 3 times even, but soon after, it gets old. Even power-ups and warps to secret levels don't save Independence Day from being mid. Graphics don't do it any justice either, they're 3D, sure, but utilize low-resolution textures and low-poly models and generally speaking, look like something from early PlayStation. So you know, fast-flying blocky messes covered in blurry splashes of odd patterns, you get what I mean, right? So, should you play it? There's very limited variety here, gameplay is rather basic and presentation is severely lacking, so no, you shouldn't. But whether you will is entirely up to you. Riven, the sequel to Myst, is precisely that, a sequel to a cult classic point-and-click puzzle mystery adventure Myst. And for the most part, it follows the identical gameplay formula, uses same control scheme and offers similar presentation, focusing on high-resolution, high-fidelity still images rather than animated graphics. So if you enjoyed the original, you'll love Riven, especially that it starts directly after the first game and continues its plot. You're still in the shoes of the so-called stranger and are tasked with traveling to Riven to save Artrus's wife Catherine. Who is Artrus? Play the first game. Same as in original, the plot is unveiled in twofold by various notes and diaries scattered around the game world and through the environmental storytelling. And if you don't mind rather slow gameplay of it, it's a marvel to experience and engage in firsthand. Riven, its beautiful environments involving puzzles and secrets will keep you on the edge of your seat working it all out, trying to find out about all the developments and shock in awe of unexpected revelations. Once again, if you don't mind slow gameplay, because you have all the time in the world playing Riven. You can examine each location, each diary and each puzzle hundreds of times over and take the stunning and remarkable locations and stories at your own pace. And while it sounds like fun, not everyone's used to such a slow and methodic approach to gameplay with no scripted happenings or timers pushing you forwards. You go through it all as fast or as slow as you do. Riven's puzzles are not the easiest to figure out, and I say it with full weight of those words. Some may even feel so annoying to work out that you'd ponder about rage quitting it out of frustration or boredom. But when that happens, take a step back, leave the puzzle aside, walk around the surrounding areas, read everything once more, try to piece together what you learned, and approach the puzzle later on with a fresh head. Because while they're not for an occasional adventure games player, they are all rooted in logic, all are solvable without any trial and error, and all feel really rewarding when you finally do. Details, details, details. Even the smallest ones, easiest to overlook, can make a difference and help you carry on. So don't miss anything. Any little thing that's left somewhere, a piece of trash, drawing, or an object seemingly lying somewhere for no reason, all of them are where they are, intentionally. There's no mistake, no decorations, everything has its purpose. And if you keep that in mind and approach the game with this mindset, you'll be able to complete and enjoy Riven to the fullest. That said, it's not a game for everyone, and if all that sounds like busy work, or even worse, boring to you, skip it and don't even bother yourself with it, it's not a game you'll like. Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before. And that's what I expected from Star Trek Starfleet Academy. Well, not really, but that's what I low-key hoped for, in the same time realizing that it couldn't have been done because the game was all about the Academy. But you never know. Naturally, it's not what I got. What I did get though was a, well, let's call it a simulation showing a life of a typical Starfleet cadet, learning basics of leadership, starship flight and combat engagement. All with the hope of becoming a captain. You play as David Forrester, a leader of a group of cadets, and you'll participate in 25 Starfleet crafted scenarios, testing your leadership aptitude and ship piloting skills. There's even an optional famous Kobayashi Mario if you dare attempting it. The game's filled with incredible cutscenes with some legends reprising their roles and meaningful choices between them, measuring how good of a leader you'd be. So you'll supervise your crew and prevent any personality clashes, relieving all potentially conflict situations. And all that is incredibly done and hella playable. But then there are flight and combat missions, and these instantly break the immersion and lower the score of the whole game considerably, in my eyes at least. And I say it as an avid Star Trek fan. You never feel as if you are piloting a huge starship or as a captain issuing orders. It feels like an X-Wing game from a competing space-based universe. Which, you know, generally speaking is not bad, but not how you'd imagine a huge hundreds of meters in length and millions of tons in weight starship to behave. On the other hand, there's no drag in space, so it could be argued that all objects, regardless of their size depending on the power that their engines have, could behave similarly in vacuum of space. And that would be an excellent argument, and good on you for pointing it out. But that's not what we saw in the TV series. I mean, they were definitely no slouches, but not small and agile fighters either. Presentation, so graphics, sounds and music are all amazing and very lore appropriate, fitting the story and setting perfectly. So nothing wrong there at least. If you're a fan, there's definitely a lot to love in Starfleet Academy, but also some things that will annoy you beyond belief and will make you grind your teeth in anger. If you're not, however, then while nothing will stick out as straight up wrong, the gameplay loop may not be interesting for you whatsoever. So, overall, everything other than the flying and combat is excellent in Starfleet Academy, but since it's a big part of quote-unquote Starfleet training, I have very mixed feelings about it and can't just blindly recommend it. Space Empires 3 may not be as well known and beloved as 4, but it's an excellent 4X turn-based sci-fi space strategy in its own right. And while it originally was made as a shareware title, it was incredibly popular due to its depth, attention to detail, and most of all, customizability. And over time, as more and more gamers tried it, it gained a huge following. Space Empires 3 sets you as a leader of one of the intergalactic species and gives you one goal: to win. Now, there are in theory different possible winning conditions, but I don't believe that I've ever been in or heard of the game that did not play out with domination as what everyone was aiming for. And since up to 10 people or 10 CPU players can battle it out on a single system, it can get really exciting and fun. I see those eyebrows raised and odd stares, I do, but really, turn-based games can be hella exciting if you play a good one and have someone else there with you. Anyway, if you're a fan of micromanagement or being able to keep a close eye on everything in your empire and making any and all choices yourself, Space Empires is definitely a game for you, because you'll be responsible for everything here. Exploration and expansion of your empire, military and otherwise. Colonization and exploitation of planets, development and research of new technologies, ship design, fleet expansion and their utilization, diplomacy, including trade agreements, military alliances, war declarations, or even espionage and sabotage of opponents' resources. Everything. And it's not all superficial, but incredibly deep, and the game is feature-packed to the brim. I mean, the research tree alone has 120 levels and numerous technological branches you can invest your time in. Space Empires 3 is gigantic, and unless you played numerous games, you'll hardly get a lick of all that it offers. Combat can be either resolved automatically, or you can choose to play all encounters by hand in a separate tactical battle screens. Not everyone's a fan, but I feel that with the right mindset and a bit of practice, in this mode you can win battles that you would otherwise lost letting them play out without your input. Galaxy map is randomized at each game start, guaranteeing a unique and fresh feeling playthrough each and every time. So, Space Empires is amazing and all, but could it really be a game with no faults? Nope, it most definitely isn't. First of all, presentation. Saying that it's Spartan is an understatement. There's virtually no sound whatsoever, the graphics are very simple, and it radiates that unmistakable sharer looks at every single screen. Sure, it could be argued that in a title that's more akin to an Excel spreadsheet than to a shooter it's irrelevant, and I agree that it's not crucial, but with a tiny bit of attention it could have been much better. Secondly, micromanagement. And it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's great if you love it, and on another, when you're in the late game with few others to boot, each turn can get tedious with so many units to issue orders to, and the turns will get longer and longer the more you play. And finally, accessibility, or lack thereof. Space Empires 3 is not the most welcoming game for strategy newbies. It doesn't really teach you anything, the interface can feel overwhelming, and you have to understand its inner workings to fully appreciate it. And that takes time. So, do I recommend it? Hell yeah, I do. Total Annihilation is a futuristic sci-fi real-time strategy and one of the most beloved by fans of the genre title of the late 90s. And interestingly enough, unlike most other games at the time, its story is rather limited and simple, not focusing on the details, but theme and feeling. It's a far-off future of AD 4000, and two factions, aptly named ARM and Core, fight it out in a centuries-long war over the control of thousands of planets. And for the most part, that's it. The galaxy is in a conflict, and you have to pick a side. At first glance, Total Annihilation looks like any other generic RTS, but as soon as you give it a little time, the differences and its unique design will become more and more prominent. Sure, some staples are unchanged from the genre's core principles like resource collection, erecting of buildings and manufacturing of units, but even these are modified to feel new and fresh. For instance, you begin a game with a commander unit, and it's your most important asset in a whole game, as it's the only one that can actually commission building constructions, so it has to be protected at all costs. Then there is resource collection, and while it initially looks similar, soon enough you'll notice that the units getting them are not coming back to base to unload. The game places its bets on tactical combat and not everything around it, so everything's simplified not to get in the way. Units are rather varied, futuristic, comprising of robots, heavy machinery, genetically modified soldiers, planes, ships and all, and they all feel like they suit their purpose great. They also gain experience in combat, and upon leveling to the rank of veteran, they get a considerable bump in accuracy and firepower. The terrain and all of the game in general is in full 3D, and elevation for once makes a huge difference during encounters, so you always want to secure the high spot, if possible. And finally, the presentation is fantastic. Both sounds and music and high-resolution graphics are excellent and fit beautifully to the game's overarching theme and an on-screen action. I'm not a fan of RTSs, it's not a secret to anyone who's been following the channel, but I gotta give justice where it's due, and Total Annihilation was truly a masterpiece in its genre. Remember Raven Software's Mage Slayer from the previous episode in the series? Turns out they released two similar games in the same year, and this, Take No Prisoners, is as good as the last one. It's also a top-down 3D action shooter, similar in its design to Gauntlet, but modernized, not fantasy-themed, and set in a post-apocalyptic dark and dystopian future. You play as Slade, a really cool named tough guy, weapon master extraordinaire, and a heartbreaker professional. Some of this may not be true. And you've been recruited by the Man, another cool nickname, very 90s really. Your mission, should you accept it and launch the game, is to find and recover a special crystal from a mysterious dome sitting somewhere in the middle of gloom and dangerous dark future San Antonio. Yes, the very same one in Texas. There are roughly 20 areas in the game, and they can be explored in a largely non-linear fashion, on foot, using ATVs, hovercrafts, and sometimes even sewer boats. There are around 20 weapons in the game, comprising of anything from assault rifles through flamethrowers and grenades, all the way to pulse cannons, not necessarily in that power order. So the variety is not an issue here whatsoever, and the game has a lot to offer. All enemies are naturally thematically fitting too, and look like nuclear fallout survivors that went mad. And they're all really aggressive. Which fits the whole rundown destroyed city setting that's kept working by small pockets of civilization scattered around it, with dangers lurking everywhere between them. Same as Mage Slayer, Take No Prisoners does not skimp on blood and brutality. The corpses after each kill lather in pools of blood in various stages of dismemberment, and painting the screen red is not difficult at all, given you manage to stumble across a pack of enemies. And you will quite often. Now, presentation-wise, Take No Prisoners is very similar to aforementioned title, and looks very decent for the time it released in. And since it was a top-down shooter in a time that most games wanted to cash in on the FPS craze, I feel that it definitely deserves a look and playthrough, as it's unique and really fun to mess around in. Oh, and of course there's multiplayer, and it's really cool too. First, there was Desert Strike, then Jungle Strike, followed by Urban Strike and Soviet Strike, and now we've landed on the last and final, Nuclear Strike. Granted, these were all on different systems, but they are part of the same series by EA. Series that started great, and then I gradually lost interest in it, giving it less and less attention with each next title. But that's me, and not a testament to this game's qualities. Anyway, Nuclear Strike takes place in Asia and pits you against an evil Colonel Le Monde, who, for whatever the reason, runs rampant around Southeast Asia and terrorizes the region. Did I mention that he's evil? I think I did. But just to be on the safe side, he's evil. Very, very, very evil. Evil to such a degree that it can be argued that he's stupid. And you know how angry stupid people get when you question their beliefs or opinions. They can get borderline violent. He's no different, only armed with a nuclear missile warhead. Now, how much damage could he do with just one of these, you may wonder? Well, the answer is a lot, depends where he sends it. But in this particular case, this question of yours is not out of place. Cause Colonel Lemonade, and I'm gonna call him that from this point onward, is not aiming to hit any of the major targets in the Western world. Nope, he's evil, he's stupid, but also little smart. I mean smart enough to come up with a terrible plan, but also stupid not to realize the consequences. Or perhaps I'm all wrong and he's way smarter than I could ever be, only bluffing and realizing that the bluff alone would be enough to bring all the nations to their proverbial knees. I think I'm losing it. So let me clarify. He modified the warhead to be launched straight into the ozone layer and explode there, causing a chain reaction and destroying all of Earth's ozone layer in one sweep strike. So, once more, you're sent in your Apache helicopter, armed with Hellfire and Sidewinder missiles, Hydra cannon and Nuke in mind to stop Lemonade from going bad. Oh my god, cringe. But also, so fitting. Anyway, along the way you'll uncover and dispose of a whole net of other dictators/terrorists' nest, and we'll even get to try out other vehicles of destruction too. So, if all that sounds at least a little interesting and you like non-linear arcade 3D vehicular shooters, then Nuclear Strike is definitely something you should try out. The game, not the terrorism, that is. I think I mentioned previously both in my Amiga and those videos that I was never a fan of sensible soccer. Don't get excited and ready to destroy me in the comments, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just not for me. I never feel that I have a full control of the ball and refuse to invest time and patience to learn to do so. So, it's not you, it's me. I mean, it's not it, it's me. That said, I always liked the management part of the sensible world of soccer games. And I know that it's beyond simple as compared to even the most basic Football Manager games, but I treated it the same way I treat mobile games now. So as something entertaining, but not too demanding, that I can do on a side while watching a movie or working. You know, very superficial trash kind of an entertainment. Anyway, Sensible Soccer 98 is a very competent effort at modernizing the classic formula. It features similar top-down view to original, though this time in full 3D and equally as fast-paced frantic gameplay. Also, same as usual, it's maddeningly difficult first and gets easier after a while. I think, cause I gave it like 20 minutes at most back then, and never crossed the "oh, I get it" threshold. Still, from what I saw and read about it online, it's a fun and fast footy that sadly never caught on and never gained the same cult following the original did. Still, if you like football games or used to waste days if not weeks playing Sensi, it may be worth a look. Canon for the release touting that war has never been so much fun, and for a while they were correct. No game could hold a candle to it. Until Worms, that appeared seemingly from nowhere and proved it wrong. Worms 2, as we know it today, had many separate individual releases, Armageddon being the most famous of them all, but before that one released years later, Basic Worms 2 was the king of 1997's couch turn-based multiplayer frenzy, and it was incredible if you had someone to play it with, that is. Everyone knows Worms, right? 2 to 4 teams fighting it out on a 2D destructible environments in turns. using dozens of often crazy and unusual weapons. Stuff like Holy Hand Grenade, Banana Bomb, Street Fighter's Hadoukens and the likes. Naturally, there are quote-unquote normal weapons too, and using them all against a buddy of yours, or even better, few of them, is super fun. I mean, not many achievements in multiplayer gaming are as rewarding as scaling a huge level, all in 60 seconds no less, using only ninja rope, swinging on it like some kind of a budget Spider-Man, excuse me, Spider-Worm, just to carefully place a stick of dynamite between 4 or 5 other worms, then run off to safety and watch the explosion send them all off the screen to their deaths. Or even launching an airstrike that takes down a whole line of opposing players' worms, dropping them all in water in one sweep badass move. The joy that the worms offer is like no other. But, and I'd like to highlight it once more as it's crucial, only if you play it with others. Cause alone, in single player, while it's a decent game too, it lacks the staying power. It's clear from the moment you launch it that it was made from ground up as a party title and it should be treated as such. Anyway, I know what worms are, you know what worms are, and chances are that that dude you met in a grocery store this morning, yes, the one who didn't think he should pay for a plastic bag, he too knows what worms are. So, what made Worms 2 different than the first game? First thing that comes to mind, and is impossible to miss, are the graphics. Gone are the pixels, and high resolution, full of soon-to-fade-away live, beautifully animated worms are in. They make faces, they play around when bored, they're spectacular, if you can call earthworms that. Sure, I have a soft spot for pixels, but it cannot be denied that the new presentation was a natural evolution of the formula and that it had to happen sooner rather than later for the franchise to survive. Then there is customizability. You can mix, match, change and adjust nearly anything when it comes to how the battles would play out. What is and isn't possible, which out of 38 different weapons and tools will be available, when and in what numbers. And everyone and anyone who will give it a minute will find the perfect formula for their games. Other than these two fundamental changes, there are also smaller ones, like addition of new weapons for instance and omnipresent polish. The remainder of the game design is unchanged, so randomly generated levels in 3 different graphical themes, destructible terrain, raising water levels, and most and above all, heaps upon heaps of never-ending fun and laughter. Worms 2 is amazing. Go and play it. Holy amazing set of games, Batman! Now were these cool or were they cool? You pick. I know you'll get it right. And when you do, let me know what you've chosen in the comments below. If you like the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below. Smash them if you have to, it helps more than you could ever know. Also, I would like to thank you and all my amazing Patreon and YouTube members for helping this channel keep going. And last but definitely not least, I would like to thank all the wonderful folks who record and upload playthroughs, let's plays and other retro-centric videos here on YouTube, because they help to preserve the games that would have otherwise been long forgotten. So thank you.